Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the new faction that was just added to Gems of War of the Dark Hits. This ends up bringing in 2 additional armor. Technically the one off of the 16,000, while this was previously possible, it did require a couple 2,500 factions, so now it's a lot more accessible and should be easy for most endgame players to get. Other than that, it also brings in 1 additional armor through Mr. Scales, which actually apparently I already have and I didn't even bother clicking it. But yeah, it is now possible to get 10 stars. I believe 12 stars you can actually reach, but of course 10 stars is the most important one, as that ends up giving us our extra +1 armor off of the power level right there. But yeah, that can now be increased a little bit further. That does require the Mythic of Ryali, but assuming you're having her, that can now reach 10 star. Other than that, as far as stuff with the faction, let's go and open a bunch of shards. This is the first time I've really been able to actually just accumulate a bunch of shards prior. So let's start opening them. We have 8,000. I believe that is enough to max out everything. As far as the new troops, they are pretty underwhelming. However, they do bring in the new cursed mechanic, which technically has been in the game for a couple months now, but this is the first time that they're able to be placed at 100% chance. This guy explodes a bunch of brown, basically kind of like a mountain crusher and stuff like that, and it does poison and disease to 2 random enemies. For the most part, don't really think it's going to be used. It is very similar to a lot of other 12 mana cost, 14 mana cost, mana generating troops. However, it doesn't have any kind of mana start, so it will require all those 12 manas initially. So you're pretty much just better off using Mountain Crusher in essentially every single situation except for Pure Faction. This thing is basically just a relatively weak double hit. It does have a pretty quick ability though, giving it at 75%, which I believe rounds down to 7. So simply just taking a single green or brown would get its mana to full, and ends up hitting 2 enemies and putting a random stats effect onto both of them. I guess it's an okay method. It's kind of like a Dragonet in early game. They both will do essentially the exact same role, except this is even more random. And other than that, we have the Hex Rat. This is probably the most useful thing, at least from the Pure Faction perspective. Ends up dealing damage to all enemies, assuming you target the first enemy. Targets whatever you hit and then everything below. And if the enemy is cursed, it will not only do double damage to it, but also Death Mark. So basically, you would curse it by taking a skull, and then you would end up getting the double damage and Death Mark onto it, while also simultaneously hitting everything else on the team. However, it doesn't double damage and Death Mark everything else. It only does it to the one that you specifically hit that happens to be cursed. So do be mindful of that. And there's also a legend in here, which we'll get in a moment, which is relatively useless. However, it does have a unique ability, and that is a 5x5 explosion. It destroys a 5x5 block, and then it curse, bleeds, and stuns the first enemy. It's only 13 mana cost, which it better be, because that is an awful ability. It is kind of interesting that he has a 5x5. Not sure how useful that actually is, but I assume not too much. But it is a new form of board control, if nothing else. And yeah, other than that, he just gains a bunch of life back. This is actually regaining it too. It's not like he's gaining 6 life per turn. It's if you're missing any life, it'll end up healing it. So if he goes from 46 down to let's say 20, then he'll start healing it. But if he's currently at his max HP, then yeah, that's not really going to be doing anything per turn. And overall, he's going to be relatively useless. Nothing about him is like good at all, other than the fact that he has that 5x5, which is kind of new, kind of interesting. Hopefully they'll put it on something else that's actually useful. But as it stands, he is relatively useless. And most things from this faction are, I didn't mention it, but everything other than this legend do have Cursed on Skull. Every single one of these, similar to the previous faction, have Cursed on Skull, which is pretty cool. I'm actually not sure why they didn't give the legend a little bit more curse option. Kind of weird that it doesn't. A mythic treasure. But the only thing that actually has the most amount of curse right now, oddly enough, is the new weapon that they just added. The new weapon within the shop, as well as the Soul Forge for this week, or whenever this faction ends up having its event, is technically the best method for cursing at the moment, which seems a little bit weird that a weapon would be the best option, but it ends up getting cursed on both the first slot and the last slot. We'll be showing that in a moment. Some people did want me to open all of them during the video, so we'll do it now. I'm mainly just counting out the legends. I think that was 4 if I actually lost count already. But as soon as we hit 6 legends, that's a good time to go check to see if we've upgraded everything or not. There's a good chance we still haven't had the rear upgraded by then, but we should have everything else maxed by that point. But yeah, this is the first time I've actually ever had this many shards to throw down. The main reason why this is the first time It's just for a few months there. We just had 500 factions, and I wasn't really going to bother. Hey, another sacred treasure. At level 500, it's just not worth trying to do factions, just because of how long it takes for how little reward you get, since it's the exact same reward at every level. But then after we ended up finishing out the hey, another sacred treasure. After we ended up finishing out a perfect crypt for 2,500, the first one we've maxed and the only one we've maxed, decided to just start getting what's it called? Decided to just start camping a specific faction, and then around that time, Warrens came around. And it's like, oh yeah, there we go. We have a perfect faction to go grind, because Warrens is still to this date like the best faction in the game right now to go and grind out if you were to keep it at a lower level. As is normal, don't bother with that pack. However, there is that little daily flash, or why did I say daily? Well, this time it actually is only a day instead of a weekend. But this is actually the first flash offer they've had that had a Orb of Ascension. Also, they may have heard, because this is actually the exact value of daily gems. Daily gems is 225, and they did 2 of them, so 450. That's kind of funny. But you basically get 2 daily gems instantly on top of a Orb of Ascension. First time they've ever had Orb of Ascension as a buyable option, which is kind of interesting. Not sure if that's worth it, but some people would probably find it decent. Don't use that on anything new, though. You'd probably want to use that on one of your better legends. Get it to Mythic. But anyways, let me go double check how far we've upgraded all this, and then actually get into showing some things with it. So, Dark Pits. Yeah, we'll just leave it this upgraded for now. We'll go do the rest of it later. But let's go and just max everything out here that we need to go and max. Move that to 19. Throw an orb at him just to get the last little level to save us some gems. Pretty much do that with every legend since we have so many ridiculously high amount of green orbs. Orange ones I'll still keep saving. There is going to be a Tradestone sync coming into the game in the near future that will maybe be requiring those. We don't even know yet if it will or will not. It'll probably affect Tradestones directly rather than the orbs, but we still don't know yet. So might as well save them just in case. But anyways, let's max these out, get them to a state where they're not completely useless, because that wouldn't be good. We'll go get them fully maxed later. But mainly just want to get, actually the only 2 I really need to get maxed are the 2 I didn't even upgrade yet, because these are the main 2 I plan on using for Pure Faction actually, as a lot of these are pretty useless. But the 2 that would be used for Pure Faction are this one, the, oh, let me get it leveled, but so I can actually see their name, instead of just saying this one. But it is Plague Rat and Hex Rat. Those are the 2 main ones that you would end up using for Pure Faction, if you were to bother to do so. But let me go get this upgraded, get that. Okay, so let's go over the actual delve itself now that we've got all of the little troops here upgraded. Still need to get those 2, but won't take too long, just for the rest of our shards. So, under game mode, underneath the faction event, we have ourselves the new faction layout. This is a relatively interesting one. Looks kind of like Warren's combined with what a good delve should be. This delve is a little bit unique in that, well, 2 things that are unique. For one, you start right in the middle of it, which is actually a little bit weird compared to most of the other delve layouts. Normally, you start at the outside of the delve and then, you know, work your way into the delve. In this one, you just get blobbed right in the middle and you basically have to find your way out of the delve, it looks like. But it's also unique in that Tier 5 room. It is the first delve to have a Tier 5 room immediately after it, after you do the first battle. So that's kind of interesting, because of course if you get a 1x5 multiplier, well, it's got the best multiplier of the entire delve immediately, so that's kind of cool. As far as the layout of this delve, more often than not, unless this is a 1.2 room, the order is do the middle because you have to. Then you take the Tier 5 room, then you take the Tier 2 room, then you scout the Tier 3 room to see if it's 1.3. If it is not a 1.3, you take the 2-4 rooms, because the lowest a Tier 4 can currently be is a 1.2. So you just take both of those, then you go for this. Assuming it wasn't 1.3, then you go and complete out this room, and then basically just go down the rest of your path, take the Tier 2, take the 3, and then of course take the boss. So basically, 1st, 5th, 2nd, most likely 4th, to scout that to see if it's a 1.3, and if so, then you do that, and then that. And then the path is pretty obvious. You just take the little loop around and then head right to the boss room. And that's basically the layout that you would do for every single time. The only exception being if this is a 1.2, in which case you skip that till you do all the other higher multipliers here. And if this is a 1.3, you end up doing this prior to doing the 2 Tier 4 rooms. And that is pretty much the layout of this delve, and you repeat that every single time. So, of course, as I mentioned, we do get a weapon if you throw down a bunch of gems at it, or if you throw do it in the Soul Forge. It is not horrible. It's not great. It's it's technically the best curse option in the game if you do want to mess around with it. It deals damage to the last enemy and then curses and drains all the mana from the last enemy. Counts as a dagger, so it'd work okay and decently with Thief. Also, wow, we have a lot of legendary ingots. But yeah, as far as its stats, pretty average, more so towards an offensive set. And as far as the perks, it does get a Destroy on a Doom Skull, which basically means an explosion, because Doom Skulls, when destroyed, do explode, or 3x3. It reduces the magic on first enemy by 1, not really much there. Deals some damage to last enemy, that's actually decent since it's synergized with the fact that it's already doing damage to last enemy. But the most relevant part about it is it curses the first enemy. And this combined with the fact that it curses the last enemy allows you to do 2 curses. And oddly enough, with all the options that we have available right now, this is the best option, since it is capable of starting with 7 mana, meaning you only need that 8 mana to get it to full, making it the, not only the cheapest curse option in the game, that's at 100%, but also the only option that can do more than 1 curse simultaneously, since it can both curse the first and last enemy. As far as it being viable, no, it is not viable. Also, I'd even mention it during this particular video, but the curse mechanic, what it ends up doing is, actually, let me go do a battle, and I could show exactly what it does. But essentially what it does is a couple things. Let me go to the battle before we go do that, though. Be a lot easier to explain. Also, where on earth are all the curse troops? Okay, fine, we'll just type in Dark Pit. Fine, be like that. Also, we get to show the pure faction team this way as well. So let me go do that, get to Dark Pit, go over here, go and put this into the area right here. So, get this in there, get that in there, get that in there. Okay, so this is pure faction, but we're also gonna run it for a quick PvP team, because why not? Let's see, casual. Refresh till we find something super weak just to throw it at, because obviously this is not meant to be used in PvP. Ooh, that's a little bit too strong. This is a little bit too weak. Can we find something in between? Come on, like a 7,000 rating or something. Come on, come on. Oh, that would have actually been fine. This should be fine. Okay, so this should be low enough that we easily kill it, but can still show the mechanic. So as I mentioned, everything except the legend here does have the ability to curse every single time it takes a skull. Now to go show what curse does. Do you have any immunities? Not. Oh yes, you do have fireproof, though there's no way I could actually show that I could do burn on it, because we don't have burn. But let me see, let's go grab that over there, get the mana there. I want to get a skull here. Okay, so cursed. Now it is cursed. Basically what this does is several things. It kind of just shows over there as well. But basically, cursed, all the things it does is when you first put it onto something, it gets rid of all their positive stats effects. So basically, it dispels them. Gets rid of barrier, gets rid of blessed, gets rid of anything that they might have. There is no immunity to stop that. The only thing that has immunity to cursed is indestructible. But no player-owned troops other than the Dooms have that currently. So there's basically nothing to have immunity to it. But even things like impervious, it will still be able to place on. Even things that have immune to stun and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's going to be a really good impervious counter. It's also just really good against things that have stats effects. Basically, it dispels all of their positive stats effects. It makes it so any stats effect will work on them. So it basically negates out any immunities they have. If it's Devour, if it's Stun, if it's Impervious, it will negate absolutely every immunity they have. So you could Death Mark things that have Impervious or Warded, which is immune to Death Mark, all those kind of things. But any stats effect you want, you'll be able to place on them. So pretty good in that regard. The other main aspect of it is it makes all stats effects last longer on them. They'll still be able to naturally cleanse if they have a cleanse option, like Mercy or anything that has cleanse. But it will make it so the normal cleanse rate is reduced by half. So normally on every stats effect except for poison, there's a 10% cumulative chance that it'll cleanse per turn, going from 10%, 20%, 30%, and so forth. However, Cursed basically halves that. So it'll be 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, and going up by 5%. So essentially it should last about half as long. Also, this ability does double damage whenever we have the, or whenever the curse, so let's throw that down, ends up killing the hero, and it does a little bit of AoE to everything. So that's basically this team, and it's basically what you'd run for Pure Faction. Unfortunately, as you can see, this Pure Faction team is relatively bad then, because team is not the greatest. It doesn't really have too many options. You basically just explode into doing a bunch of damage with that, and that's not going to get you too far, but that is about all we have for Pure Faction. It's a relatively weak faction. If nothing else, it's going to be pretty easy to destroy this week if you're trying to get up to 500 or whatever you're trying to do with it. As far as actually farming the faction, going to be easy. Doing Pure Faction, kind of weird just because the troops there are not that good. As far as things that you would run for the Delve, there are two teams that you could do. I'm not going to use them right now in PvP, But if you need to go and use a cheap option, you could go do a Mountain Crusher, Apothecary, and double Gargoyle set to a double brown +1 blue. Important to have at least +1 for your Apothecary on either green or blue, simply because it allows you to two-turn your Apothecary, assuming you cleanse one of your options, and one of your options is, of course, the +1. So as long as you take at least whatever your +1 is once, and as long as you surge on 1 to 2 colors, you can two-turn your Apothecary to full mana. And other than that, we just have Mountain Crusher here set as either Sentinel or Titan. Titan stronger, Sentinel you can go and level if you haven't maxed out yet. It's also tankier, though you don't get to start with half mana. Either or ends up working. And you can go with a super cheap option, a double Gargoyle. You can upgrade this to a mid-range team as well instead of double Gargoyle. Actually, pretty much every single team they would end up running for this faction, for the most part, would be centered around Mountain Crusher, Apothecary, anything, or Dragon's Eye, Apothecary, anything. Or basically any good brown weapon, anything, like Mang would even work if you really wanted to. But yeah, this general premise of team is what you would use, and you would just upscale it from here, depending on what your options are. Gargoyle being the cheapest, since all you have to do is just throw some shards at the Hall of Guardians portal, and you'll end up getting Gargoyle pretty quickly. I'm pretty sure you could get that within like 400 to 1,000 shards thrown at that faction, which you could easily accumulate. But as far as the main team we'll be using once we get past the initial grind is, you've probably seen this before, Mountain Crusher, Apothecary, High King, Iron Gut, and Possessed King. Same banner, same premise of team. You throw down either Mountain Crusher or Apothecary immediately. That gets all of your mana rolling. You then keep spamming High King, Iron Gut to devour everything. If they happen to not have Immune to Devour, you could use Possessed King, or if they have Immune to Devour, you can use Transform on them in order to make them into something that does not have Immune to Devour. If you do not have Possessed King, you might want to consider, once you get to the later delves, to replace out Mountain Crusher with a Dragon's Eye, as that would serve the same purpose as a Possessed King would. And then you would just put in a mana generating support option into that slot, depending on what you have. Most likely a Sylvania Mora would end up working best. Not only does it end up using brown, so you'll be able to accumulate mana in it, you'll also be able to get entangles so that they don't kill your hero. So that would probably be your best bet if you don't want, or if you don't have a Possessed King. But yeah, that's pretty much what you would run, and you could run this through the entirety of the faction. Just don't run at low levels, otherwise it's going to be a little bit too slow, though technically you would still win. But anyways, that is pretty much everything with Dark Pit. If you still have any other questions about it, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. It's nice that we do have the curse mechanic now. However, everything in this faction is pretty underwhelming. Good faction just to get done to get to 500. It is not one you'd want to camp for resources, though, unless you had literally no other faction to do so. Obviously, we're doing it to Warrens right now. However, to my understanding, this place does not actually have any treasure rooms. Also, what on earth is that glitch right there? We have a little swirly ball of yellowness. That is cool. We'll need to keep that and see how long we can keep it for. That's weird. Anyways, guys, say goodbye to the swirling ball of nothingness. I don't know what that is. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. Obviously, we'll be streaming the faction and going through it and all that today at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a few hours, as well as tomorrow, same time. And we also still do our nightly streams every day at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'll see you guys then. Best of luck with everything, and goodbye, everyone.